All right, good morning. Thanks for joining us. This is a vendor session. You know how it goes, but we've got this rule, no marketing. So just to make my marketing department happy, I work for Veeam. I'm a technical evangelist. And when this is recorded, we're good to go. And I always show that to the department, so that's fine. Also, behind I have a colleague over there. He's got some stuff. Please take something because I really would hate to take it back home. Way too much effort. My name is Mike. I work as a technical evangelist, and one of the advantages in that role is that, or disadvantages, it depends on how you look at it, is that I have to talk to a lot of customers, but not from the sales side, which means I don't have to sell. Well, you work for a vendor, so everybody sells, but I try not to do that, and we always have lots of open conversations. And one of the things I wanted to try today, so I could appreciate, some feedback at this evening during beers, especially after 2 or 3 for me, so I don't mind if it's bad feedback anymore. I was going to try to do something new today. I'm going to try to do some thought leadership. Sounds difficult in the morning, I know, but try and stay with me. Because, 2.5 years ago, the conversations that I had once every 2 weeks, once a month was, how are we going to use infrastructure as a service resources? I don't care whether it's Azure or AWS or Google or IBM or what else is out there. How are we going to do that in our environment? If you look at it today, I have this conversation 3 to 4 times a week. Whenever I'm at an event, this always comes back. So during all of these conversations, I took a lot of notes, and I kind of compiled a few things what I think you can do today, or you can advise to your own business, to your customers, and just some ideas. It's certainly not the definitive guide, but at least it's some ideas, and also the pitfalls you can see. So on our agenda, what I want to talk about is we all want the cloud. At least that is what certain vendors starting with G, ending at Artner, telling us. Some use cases where you can start with to gain some experience. Very simple, very stupid, but they actually work. And then I want to continue and talk about what are the pitfalls when you do this. And I want to talk about how you need to model your apps or your workloads, which surprisingly is a lot of people, a lot of companies have no idea how their huge workloads, which are business critical, are working in their environments or what is needed. I also want to talk about a new type of role in a company called cloud architect. We'll come back to that, but lots of companies have no idea. They want one, but have no idea what he needs to be able or she needs to be able to do. And then finally, I also want to talk about infrastructure as code, because that is also something that many people forget and they should start building as well. And then, Q&A during the day afterwards. We'll see about that. So, everybody wants to go to the cloud, right? At least that is what everybody's telling us. It's a marketing word. I said I wouldn't do marketing, but unfortunately with this word, it is marketing. Why is that? Well, it's the shiny new player. It's fantastic. And especially, I hope there's not too many C-level here or management in the room. Otherwise, I already apologize for my extremely bad jokes for the rest of the day. When they come back from a certain event, business type event, they come back and they say, look, we need to go to the cloud because I'm going to save lots and lots of money with it. Here we go. Well, he's going to play my IT professional. Normally I do it myself, but every time I'm saying something, it's no. And the second thing I've heard and I've seen in demos, it's very elastic, it's very agile. If our department X wants to do whatever, they just click a few buttons, get their credit card, and boom, we're running 5 times as big as before. It's not that easy. That's what IT pros say. But it's all fully automated, the cloud. I've seen it. Well, the IT pros are going to say, well, if it's automated, when you create the automation, it's not going to be, there. I can do that in my own data center. Yeah, but the cloud can't break. Well, just last couple of weeks, you saw major vendors having DNS issues breaking an entire region. We've seen cloud vendors going out of business, giving somebody 2 weeks notice, please download all your stuff because we're gone. It's not really unbreakable. And then, of course, the typical thing is that, what they've been telling us for 3 years now, Why would we stay in our own data center? Because when we want some resources, it takes you X amount of time to deliver it, and with this it's about 15 minutes. While it seems faster, in reality, the 2 buttons and a VM is running, that might be faster, but you still have to configure, you still have to upload certain data, you still have to do all that stuff. So it's not always faster as well, especially when you've got a more advanced data center, not just a typical, Windows boxes more or less connected. But that is, of course, what IT pros do at that point in time. They're looking at you like, yeah, right, are you kidding me? Let's really talk about the cloud. What about security? We've seen the breaches. I mean, it's not only infrastructure as a service. I have seen many companies, and I've talked to many companies a year ago that said, look, we want to move everything to Dropbox because it's easy, it's cheap. You noticed what happened with Dropbox a couple of weeks ago. Luckily, there are more secure solutions, but still, it's happening. Second question those IT pros ask, that's all nice, the cloud, but where is my data? I mean, if somebody is here from Germany, they know putting the data in the cloud is just not an option. Microsoft is playing into that game now by opening something in Germany, but still, I'm from Belgium. If you work for a lawyer company, and there are a few other verticals, there's no way you're allowed to put your data in the cloud unless it is physically located in Belgium. And it even has to be, in some verticals, rather close. Well, I'm not talking about 100 meters, but it has to be within 50 kilometers of your area. Don't ask me why, but it's one of these rules. I assume they will go away with the new European rules, but still, it's one of these rules. What about outages? This is probably my favorite as being an IT pro myself. It's all nice, but if something goes wrong, we're number 2,713 on the support list, waiting with our fingers until they fix it. If something goes wrong in my data center, I work day and night to get it fixed, live on cigarettes, on coffee, sleeping in the office just to make sure we're running. A little bit, wrongly said, but that's what happens. In the data center, you're literally waiting, and your boss comes to you, when is it going to be fixed? When is it going to be fixed? Well, guess what? I'm waiting. Should I call again? No, because they will tell you the same as well. And finally, and the big scare of IT pros, certainly some IT pros that are in the field for a longer time, I'm going to lose control. I can't touch my hardware anymore. I can't do this anymore. Well, this is maybe not completely true, because you have to be able to let go a little bit of control, but it's still a fact that when you don't have control over certain things, it's also very difficult to make sure how is my workload going to do it, and so on and so forth, right? So whenever then those discussions are, and I always say for the fun, when I talk to C-level, they say, we want to go to the cloud, and the architect, when I talk to him, he says, I must go to the cloud. Reason being, lots of these cloud vendors, of course, giving a lot of free stuff now, to get you buy-in. They've got like lots of resources available, and now it's, I need to use it. I don't know what to do with it, but I need to use it. And, my boss is killing me to use it.
Yeah, the first dose of drugs is always free.
Sorry?
The first dose of drugs is always free.
Yeah, the first dose of drugs is always free. And they're actually very good in those cloud vendors to give you those drugs, but... So when I tell them, we are going to go to the cloud. Maybe even in 10 years, it's still going to be a hybrid cloud. There are going to go parts move to that cloud. So how do you get the experience? How do you get your IT field, your employees ready? How are you going to, start gaining experience in this cloud story? So what I do is, I look at some use cases and see if I can use it. Now, let's imagine this is a typical workload that you have in your environment, right? You've got running on VMware, Hyper-V, maybe even some other things, but I didn't have the other icons. So you got somewhere a backend, whatever database, says SQL, don't care, could be something else. We got a middle tier, some logic. We've got a front tier, maybe some websites. In front of it, load balancer. Very simple, but very common as well. Now, one of the things that if this is your environment, you got 3 front ends, 2 middle tiers, 2 SQL boxes, maybe even more. If you're an IT pro and you're responsible for doing testing when there's an upgrade or testing patches, we all love patches lately, right? I mean, you've noticed in the news that lots of things have broken the last couple of months. How are we going to do that? Well, this was the history, right? If you're lucky, your test environment is only one database, only one middle tier, and only one front end, and probably not even a load balancer in front of it, if you're lucky. In many cases, the companies I worked for, everything was just running on one machine, and I had to test it there. Which means if you test that, you're not looking at how is the communication between servers running, how is this. There's a lot of things you're not testing, but it's the way we worked. Well, why not start using the cloud if you've got those resources anywhere? So the first use case I use is, I'm going to rebuild that exact environment, but in the cloud. Turn it on, do some testing, even give access to developers, let them do some stuff, and then when they're done, shut down. You use some resources, you probably got them for free anyway, and you can actually say if my real environment is, 20 virtual machines, you can simulate that completely, right? One use case. Patching, updates, and upgrades, that's my favorite one because, lots of things are breaking, you never know. Even if you test it on a small environment, you go to production and still something breaks. So I use it as there as well. And then last but not least, I use it for disaster recovery testing. Now this one, I kind of came up in my head, I think a year and a half ago. Really stupid. Woke up and say, you know what, I need to do some testing. And normally, at my own office, I do disaster recovery testing to some laptops, which is really testing, right? So I said, I'm going to use the cloud. I'm going to restore my backups in the cloud, whatever platform I'm using. Now, one of the advantages, if I do that, I can actually restore the entire workload, all the front ends, all the middle tier, all the databases. And automatically, when I did that, I realized, you know what, I just got the environment running from yesterday night when my backup was taken. Which means that I could easily now give access to my developers, and they were then testing, developing, acceptance, whatever, on real information. Not the fake database they're using to program on, but with real data, the data that is a couple of hours old. And at the same time, I could actually do patching, updates, upgrades, and that kind of testing on a real environment, which was a couple of hours old. Which means I could write my nice reports, take some screenshots, go to the change advisory board, and actually show that I really tested it and had a full plan. It has a double advantage. So these are just simple 3 use cases that you can start using the cloud for and gain some experience. Then I get this as an answer from any C-level. Cool, let's do this. I want this. And then the architect is looking at me. Are you kidding me? How am I going to start this? And that is important. Are you really ready as a company to do this? And in many cases, even very, very large enterprises, they're simply not ready. And one of the things is they have no idea how their workload runs and what it needs. Let me give you a simple example. Now, I said Exchange Server, that's nice. Could be Lotus, could be Zimbra, could be whatever you want to use. But if you look at mail as a workload, it's way more than your typical couple of servers doing some stuff. Compare it with real mail, right? If you get a letter, it's not somebody writing the letter and you're receiving the letter. There's a whole framework in between from getting that letter from point A to your door and the mailman putting it in. With mail, it's exactly the same thing. Every workload has more than that. Can you run email, in the case of Exchange Server, for example, without an Active Directory? Do you need DNS? Do you need DHCP? Hopefully not, but some organizations actually use that. Don't ask me why, but it happens. What about your firewall rules in between? What about your different VLANs? And so on and so forth. If you really want to do those use cases, those scenarios, you actually have to map out that entire workload. And the amount of times we see that it doesn't work because they are missing things is really because they have no idea what their application needs. So that's the first thing you need to do. The second one is that when you go to the cloud and you have your typical data center architect, his skills, I'm not saying they're bad skills or all skills, forget about it, you're still going to need it, but the skills are different as well. So if you look at it today and you open whatever job website in your country, then you see lots of these people that want a cloud product manager, cloud executive, software engineer, all cloud. What does it mean? When you go talk to these companies and ask, all right, I saw somebody, you're looking for a cloud engineer, I like that name. What do I need to do? They have no clue. They basically give you what a normal engineer has been doing today in their own data center for years and give the same job description, which of course is a big difference. So over the year and a half, I've been searching, I've been talking to people what exactly would make a cloud architect. So I got a few things. First, different skills than the typical data center architect. Be sure of that, right? It's a person who needs a vision. What I mean by that is he needs or she needs to think in the long term, where are you going with the company? 5-year vision. Now you can say a data center architect needs to have the same thing, that's true, but 10 minutes? Oh God, I'm going to have to run. Sorry. He needs to have also that vision, besides going the cloud vision, how to combine it with the current data center. Because in 5 years, there's no way your company is going to be completely cloud. Some might be, smaller ones, but the big ones, forget about it. Never going to happen. Needs that vision. Important to know is that cloud is not just about OpEx, because this is one of my favorite things that some C-levels say is, yeah, we want to go to the cloud because then forget about CapEx, we're going to go to OpEx. Woohoo! My accountant is happy, my CFO is happy, I'm happy. There's a little bit more to it, it's not just a number games. Of course, he needs to embrace the cloud. I wrote this simply because I had a cloud architect, which I was talking about, who basically hated cloud. So everything he did was prove to his manager that was bad so they could stay in the data center. I'm not sure how he's going to keep his job, but that was his thing. My kind of guy. The main goal of the guy is to improve the business, right? Only go to the cloud if it improves the business. If not, please stay in the data center. And not, let's secure my job and let's try to move everything there as well, because those guys exist as well. You need to have strong leadership, communication, because the moment you start doing it, you're going to talk to different teams, you need to work with different teams, you suddenly have to go to the storage guys, which are most of you, I guess, here in the room, and saying, hey, I'm going to steal a part of your work, you're going to have less storage because I'm moving stuff away. Guess what? If you don't have strong skills, you're going to have a great day, or evening, depending on when you saw. It's also a completely different way of talking to vendors and negotiating. I mean, in the data center, when you're an architect, you negotiate with your vendor, you talk about features and so on, support contracts and whatever. But whenever it comes to running and keeping it available and those kind of things, you do it yourself. The moment you go to a cloud, keeping it available is kind of out of your hands, so you have to negotiate. Also, you're going to have to talk, if something goes wrong, are we number 2,187, or are we going to be very, very in the beginning of the list so we're helped quickly? What can I do? Who do I need to contact? And so on and so forth. Completely different way of negotiating with your vendors, right? You're also going to need to avoid, and this is a big risk, and it's happening already today, just a bunch of clouds. Because, hey, for this role, let's take this cloud. Oh, and for that, let's take a software as a service. Oh, and by the way, for that, we're going to do platform as a service. And in the end, what you got is lots of credit cards being used, paying for different services with no integration. What's the use in that? So he needs to keep in mind that sometimes there might be a solution which is better technically, but because then you start to divert, it doesn't fit the overall view. So keep that in mind as well. And in the end, because I was talking all about soft skills, don't forget, he still needs technical skills. He still needs to be able to understand everything which is happening with all the new stuff coming and so on and so forth, right? Finally, that guy, well, he needs to move the business away from on-premises, but keep in mind that many things will still stay there and keep them connected. So quite some different skill sets than the data center architect, and something in your own business you need to discuss as well. And mostly then the discussion will be, all right, what are we going to do? Are we going to find someone on the market? And let's be honest, there aren't many people on the market like this today. Or are we going to take somebody from the company and, build those skills, let them go to training and so on and so forth. Also, very important here is that I had a few companies that told me, you know what, we are hiring consultants who are cloud architects, do all the work, and then we don't have to have it themselves. Then I say, don't forget the moment those consultants walk out the door, it still needs to be managed. It still needs to be, upgraded, even moved to other, so you still need that type of guy anyway. Last but not least, I love this as well. Guys are telling me, we are going to the cloud and I expect the project to be finished in 9 months. Good luck. It's not a sprint. You have to take this on a yearly planning, and you have to make sure that the C-level, your managers, understand that as well. This is not just a project that's done within half a year, right? Time to break down the silos. Kind of already touched it, but this person also needs to make sure that the silos you still have in enterprises where you've got the storage team and you've got the management team and you've got the virtualization team and you have the whatever team. This person is going to be, looking at an overall and need to bring those together as well. Finally, I also want to quickly, 5 minutes, yes, I'm almost done, awesome. Talk about infrastructure as code. One of the things I still see is when you want to go to the cloud, you have to start thinking about infrastructure as code. Does that mean we IT pros suddenly need to start writing code? No, that would be a bad thing. I mean, I've done that 15 years ago. I would not even know how to start anymore. But you do have to realize that many of these cloud platforms, you can declare lots of things in code, while code is being relative. It also means that if you look at it from a data center perspective, you can start there as well. There are many tools. I'm not going to name any brands, but I'm pretty sure you know them as well, where you can do exactly the same on premises, write out your workloads, your virtual machines, even till the IP in a piece of code, use those templates or forms and use those in the cloud as well. Which again, I come back to my use cases. If you already have done for your workloads on premises, bringing that as a backup or a test environment or whatever to the cloud suddenly becomes really, really easy. Will you be able to do this tomorrow? Unfortunately, no. But if you start today and you start to build that, that experience, you will be ready in the next couple of years in case it really starts to move really fast or you're being forced by your C-level to go there anyway. Jobs are changing. The biggest joke with the cloud, IT pros won't have any work anymore. Forget about it. We will actually have more work than before. But start that change today. Don't be afraid. Nothing to be scared of. It's a different way of working. It's learning again. But hey, we're in IT. If you went into IT, I hope you realized you have to study for the rest of your life. But start that change as soon as possible. If you wait too long, also talk to your management and ask if you get, I don't know, once a month, a day, or a couple of hours in the week to actually do these things, to learn these things, to go to events, stuff like that, to make sure that you get yourself ready. And don't forget, these building blocks, make sure you really understand what your workloads are. If you got a new project, and you need to build something new, make sure you start from day one by having it built out, that you know what you need, that you don't get any surprises. Now, one, or not the last conclusion, but one of them is, the funny thing is what we've seen with companies who started to embrace this, and they have internal development teams, that through these methods, IT pros starting those, that developers are happy because they are shipping code faster because they can actually work faster. So that is one advantage. Second thing is that we noticed that the overall performance is gaining as well, because guess what? If your workload is running in your production environment, but you move that stuff to the cloud through all of these methods, we talked about it, and then, you put some additional resources to see what is happening, then you know what you can do in your environment to fix your problems as well. And last but not least, of course, while I do work for a certain vendor, you have less chance on disaster and your time to recovery will go up because you get experienced in those things, right? Does it look difficult? Yes, it does. Is it really difficult? No, if you get the time. If you get that time. Look, use cloning, you know, and then just quickly, because I got the signal, I have to stop. You can benefit from it today, but be aware you have to learn. Rethink all of your solutions. Think about this role internally, discuss it. Even if your boss doesn't want it, discuss it already today. Get somebody in there that wants to go to that path and wants all the learning, and think about infrastructure as code. Any questions? More or less just in time? 1 minute, see? No questions? Yes?
You mentioned that this is more than OpEx.
Yes.
Could you elaborate that?
So, yeah, one of the big, how do you say this in English, promises of the cloud was forget about CapEx, forget about purchasing hardware and having lots of money being invested at once. With the cloud, you only pay for what you use and per month, right? You cannot imagine how CFOs, how people that pay the bills in companies love that because they know every month.
Especially since that argument came in 2009 when everybody's CapEx budget got taken away.
Exactly.
But paying $10 a month versus paying $50, I'd rather pay $50 once than $10 a month forever.
Exactly. I am completely in agreement with that, but still today there are lots of businesses where the CFO in his mind is, I need that monthly paying model because that is better. And also because what they see, they're end users, right? A CFO in the end is an end user that goes home and pays, I don't know the prices, but let me gamble, $7 a month for Netflix. Has a $3, cell phone, whatever application that he pays for. They're used to this new model. Everybody's now 20 years old. They don't buy a fixed TV anymore and a yearly fee for whatever. No, they pay X amount of month for a certain service. They can stop the service whenever they want. They can activate whenever they want. So it's in their mindsets. And we see that, unfortunately, a lot, while, as he says, and most IT pros agree, are you kidding me? If I buy it now, I mean, it takes 8 months in the cloud, and I kind of have my money back already. Because don't believe that cloud is cheap, by the way.
So you mean in the long term, it's more expensive than?
For sure. Today, yeah.
The cloud is cheap for those things that you run intermittently because you
Yeah.
only pay for it by the hour.
Yeah.
I have a project I'm working on now where we're going to need 30 servers for an hour at a time. And the cloud is perfect for that.
Yeah.
But for the thing that needs to run 7/24, 365, all those hours add up.
Yeah. Unless you can stop your production during the night or something, but I don't think that's a good idea. Prices will drop. I mean, at a certain moment, cloud might become more cost-effective, but today, in all honesty, as he says, for what I showed, the use cases, yes. But running all the time, All right, thank you.